Good afternoon, this is Channel 4 News. I'm Christian Guru-Murthy, live in Downing Street, as the formal transfer of power from Keir Starmer to Andy Burnham is well underway. The incoming Prime Minister says this is going to be the biggest political change Britain has seen in 40 years. But for a man who wants to tear things up, he still has to go through the constitutional traditions of being invited to form a government by the King. When Andy Burnham comes back from Buckingham Palace, we will start to see what that change actually means. While we are on air, he will address the nation just from outside here and then start appointing his cabinet. With me here in Downing Street, our political editor Gary Gibbon, and we have correspondents at Westminster, Buckingham Palace and around the country to bring you reaction as Andy Burnham takes over at number 10. Well, within the last hour, Sir Keir Starmer has given his final address at the now very familiar lectern outside number 10. He said he wished the man who has ousted him, Andy Burnham, every success. Here's what Sir Keir said before leaving to meet the King in Buckingham Palace.
Thank you very much, and good morning. I'm about to visit His Majesty the King to offer my resignation and close the book on my time as Prime Minister. My work is done. In 6.5 years, I took our party from a historic defeat in 2019, changed it so it was fit to face the country, and won a landslide general election victory in 2024. Since then, it has been the privilege of my life to serve you and this great country as Prime Minister. And I am confident that Britain is now stronger and fairer than it was 2 years ago. Our economy is stronger. Our public services are on the up, with the biggest fall in waiting times for 17 years. Children are being lifted out of poverty every single day. Immigration is down significantly. Our defence and security are on a far stronger footing, and our international reputation is greatly enhanced. Yet the thing I will always take away with me, the most humbling aspect of this job, is the front row seat you get to witness the greatest things of this country in action. To see every day immeasurable acts of resolve, grit, decency and compassion from people who serve our country, whether that's in their regimental colours, NHS scrubs, or simply the millions of people in their communities who volunteer their time and their effort to the ground beneath their feet. We face a world now where our enemies will stop at nothing to divide us because of our values, our freedom, our decency, and frankly, because of our unflinching resolve towards the brave people of Ukraine. And so under this attack, it is vital that we remember the greatness of the Britain all around us, that while we debate how to fix our problems, there is something we inherit from our country and our character that can give us confidence, that we can change our country for the better, that we can create a Britain where every child can go as far as their talent will take them, and we can unite different people under our common flag if we don't succumb to that division. So, as I now pass the baton to Andy Burnham, I wish him every success. He has my full support. And finally, I want to thank once again my family, Vic and our children, my team, all the staff here and across the Labour Party, everyone at number 10 and across the civil service, and everyone who has supported our efforts along the way. For all the focus on individuals, politics will always be a team sport, and the changes we've delivered for our country and our party belong to everyone who has fought for them. I thank them again today, and I thank the British people for the opportunity to serve. I go with good grace, I go with a smile, and I go proud of everything that we have achieved. Thank you very much.
And then he went to the palace and resigned to the king. And right now, as we speak, Andy Burnham is in Buckingham Palace meeting the king, where the king will invite him to form a government. Well, our political editor, Gary Gibbon, is with me. I mean, we'll talk about Burnham in a moment, but when it comes to Starmer, will history be kinder to him than Labour MPs, or did Labour MPs get it about right?
He's trying to write the first draft of history here. Departing prime ministers often do. But it was classic Keir Starmer in a way, because he listed his achievements, and still those achievements which he proclaims don't quite tell a story. And Keir Starmer always had this sort of slight phobia about storytelling inside politics. He thought it was rather dirty business, snake oil salesman sort of type stuff. And there he was doing that all over again, and that was one of the critical flaws possibly in his premiership. The other one being, of course, as people would say, coming in without a plan. And we now have from his former Chief of Staff, Morgan McSweeney, a public acknowledgement of that, though you got nothing of that from Keir Starmer today. He was emphasising he was going with good grace, with a smile on his face, as you heard there. And what a contrast that is with the sort of doom-laden entry into power, which again I think he looks back on and thinks probably wasn't the cleverest way to announce yourself to the nation as a new prime minister, saying, goodness, this is going to be tough, great big black hole, doom, gloom, all the rest of it. I suspect we're going to see a different sort of presentation quite soon.
Well, one of those people who was applauding in Downing Street was Lord Hermer, and straight after that speech, I spoke to Sir Keir's ally and mentor, who is still technically the Attorney General for England and Wales, and I asked him for his thoughts.
Well, pretty emotional. I don't think anybody thought it was going to come to this in 2 years' time, but pretty emotional. Listening to Keir talk about the achievements that he has secured for this country was pretty emotional. But also, I think all of us determined, whether we're inside out of government going forward or outside of government going forward, to ensure that Andy Burnham has the best possible start as Prime Minister to help the people of this country.
Can you make sense of it now, what happened, why they got rid of him?
Well, look, they say it's too early to know what the causes of the French Revolution were, never mind what's happening over the last few weeks. I think we'll want to learn as a party, as a government, from our first 2 years. I'm sure Andy will want to learn those lessons to ensure that he delivers, that he secures outcomes for people in this country, that he improves standard of living. We'll want to learn those lessons, but I think it's probably today not the day to be sitting down with a notepad and working out what they are.
How important do you think has been that ability of Keir Starmer to connect with people in the way that Andy Burnham clearly does? You know, I mean, was that something, you've known him a long time, that you were surprised that he seemed to struggle with?
Well, look, I know somebody who's incredibly passionate, who, you know, you get Keir talking about opportunities for young people in this country, the passion oozes out of him. Now, sometimes we didn't always manage to get that over, but Keir is a deeply passionate, highly emotional, as well as being very clever and articulate, all the things that people know. You saw some of that today, you've seen it on other occasions. I think we're going to see it of him going forward as well.
The Burnham team clearly want to come in with a splash and do lots of things quite quickly to set the new political temperature. I mean, that's risky, isn't it?
Well, there's no risk-free approach in politics, full stop. I think they are right to be coming in with a level of enthusiasm that we've seen. I think that's kind of exciting. Just wish them the best luck. This is a phenomenal country. Andy's being handed this huge privilege to govern. It behoves all of us to wish him every success, because his success is our success.
And what do you think Keir Starmer will do? I mean, would you like to see him at NATO, for example?
Well, I'd like to see him have a bit of a break to start with. I think he deserves it. I think he's got a huge role to play on the international stage going forward.
One of those big jobs.
Well, has Keir Starmer got a role to play in making this world safer, more prosperous, more rights respecting? He absolutely has. I mean, last week, just remember, he got an award in France from President Macron. He was the first Prime Minister to get it since Winston Churchill. He's a giant on the international stage. He will be a great ambassador for this country on that international stage, and I look forward to watching him.
Lord Herman, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
So Andy Burnham is in Buckingham Palace right now. Let's talk about him, Gary. There have been little things dribbing and drabbing out into the newspapers. He wants to do something on the cost of living, on energy, maybe on tax. What's going to happen over the next few days?
There will be announcements. He's absolutely determined that there will be announcements that connect with what he thinks is a deep concern out there over the cost of living. He wants to make gestures, he hopes they'll be seen as more than gestures, movements towards easing the cost of living crisis for people. Quite what he can do, quite how he affords it, quite how he convinces the markets that this is not just going to be a spending government that never works out how to raise the money, we just do not know. It's very telling that Andy Burnham asked Keir Starmer for August. He wanted August to plan his government. He hasn't got it. He's coming in without a fully worked out plan. He says the complete opposite in his speech.
He says, I have a plan.
I have a plan, I have a plan. It's not a plan as you and I might recognize it. It is a vision with a couple of working notions of things he wants to announce, but it is not quite, it doesn't feel like a plan as we would normally recognize it, and the sort of thing that we expect governments to come in with.
We've got some pictures of Andy Burnham arriving at Buckingham Palace, and it would be nice to know what the King might say to him. But I was sort of raising this question of risk with these announcements with Richard Hermer. I mean, if Andy Burnham announces things that do cost a lot of money, then he could be in hock to the bond markets, which is exactly what he didn't want to be.
He's acutely aware of that. The reason Andy Burnham, some time ago, I believe, moved away from the idea of having Ed Miliband, or never really engaged with the idea of having Ed Miliband as his chancellor. I'm not sure his chances ever really rose much above 20-30%. It was his own campaigning for the role that maybe rose the prominence of the idea of Ed Miliband as chancellor. But Andy Burnham was cool on the idea because he and some people around him thought there is too much jeopardy in this. This guy will actually rock the markets, worry the markets, and one other interesting footnote in the appointment that won't happen, which was so expected, is that people around him thought Ed Miliband's a guy with his own sort of political troops, with his own political base. Remember the last occupant of last Labour occupant of number 11 who had his own political base when the guy at number 10 felt that was extremely uncomfortable. Well, he was trying to avoid something like that, I think.
Okay, well, let's go to our correspondent at Buckingham Palace. Anya Popp joins us now as Andy Burnham is inside meeting the King. Anya.
Yes, Andy Burnham is inside, but in the last hour, as we have heard, Sir Keir Starmer came here to tender his resignation. This is just a constitutional formality. We already know that Sir Keir Starmer has stepped down as Labour leader with the intention of resigning as Prime Minister as soon as a new Labour leader was in place. That, of course, happened on Friday, to no surprise, Andy Burnham. So now the so-called King of the North is inside meeting the actual King, where the King will ask him to form a government. This procedure, the formality between the monarch and the incoming Prime Minister, is called kissing hands. This stems back from a phrase surviving from when incoming Prime Ministers were actually required to kiss the hands of the monarch to profess their loyalty to both them and to the Crown. But no actual kissing of hands takes place anymore. But Tony Blair recalled how when he became Prime Minister, in his kissing of hands, he was told by a palace aide to gently brush the hands of Queen Elizabeth with his lips, but instead he tripped on a piece of carpet and ended up falling on the late Queen's hands. He also said in that audience that the Queen Elizabeth said to him, "You are my 10th Prime Minister. The first was Winston," referring to Winston Churchill, of course. That was before you were born. But of course, since then, the number of Prime Ministers has greatly increased, 7 in the last 10 years. King Charles has only been head of state for 4 years. In that time, he's had 4 Prime Ministers: Liz Truss, Rishi Sunak, Sir Keir Starmer, and of course, Andy Burnham. To give you comparison, the late Queen appointed 15 in her 70-year reign.
Andy Burnham is now the Prime Minister. He has met the King and been invited to form a government. He will be due back here in Downing Street over the next few minutes where we expect him to give a speech, although you'll see the lectern has been taken away. So maybe that's a sign of the times that he won't be standing behind the traditional lectern. Well, James Frith is the Labour MP for Bury North and a Burnham backer. Since March, he has been Under Secretary of State in the Department for Science, Innovation and Technology, where he was responsible for delivering the government's digital ID, which is now set to be scrapped, possibly along with the Department of Science, Innovation and Technology. James Frith, I mean, just on that, it's a good example of something that you would have been defending yesterday, and now presumably you think it's a great idea to scrap.
Look, I defend the need to reform public services, join them up, personalise them. It's right that an incoming Prime Minister outlines their priorities, and I look forward to hearing that later today and this coming week. The principle of good public services is an instinctive Labour tradition, and Andy has already spoken about rewiring the state, and I think there is a role, whether that's one login or the work that we've been preparing for digital ID, that will continue to be absorbed. The means with which we reform our public services is for the Prime Minister to outline, but I support that direction of travel. I do want to put a shout out for the work that goes on behind the scenes to make these things possible. There's a great army of experts and good people in our civil service for whom this is a disruptive day for them as well. But I welcome a clarity of thought from the Prime Minister now in Andy Burnham, and I look forward to hearing more detail of his plans.
Well, you say clarity. I mean, what we've got so far is Labour, you know, as if we're all supposed to know what that means. I mean, you talked about Labour instincts. Can you tell me what Labour instincts are?
It's about justice, it's about fairness, it's about equality of opportunity, and it's about the instinct to ensure that more people benefit from our nation's progress. And I think I put on record my warm appreciation and admiration of the outgoing Prime Minister Keir Starmer, who his instinct was to return the Labour Party.
Not that warm, let's be honest.
Absolutely it is, and continues to be.
I mean, you wanted to get rid of him, didn't you?
I think the good grace. I've been on TV shows right up until this moment, defending the record of the first 2 years of this Labour government. And I think, notwithstanding the need for a better story for the future, there is a lot to be proud of in this first 2 years. And I know that in the good grace the former Prime Minister Keir Starmer has shown in welcoming Andy Burnham as the new Prime Minister, that goes a huge way in ensuring the peaceful transfer of power and this new iteration, this boost of Burnham as he comes in as our Prime Minister to take the energy, the vigour, the vision and the plan that he has administered over Greater Manchester until recently, now to the whole country.
Is it mostly about communications then? Because we don't have a detailed plan. We don't actually know what's happening. I mean, are you saying Keir Starmer had to be replaced because he just wasn't very good at inspiring people?
I prefer to affirm the positive of our new Prime Minister, which is that he is a very good storyteller. He communicates with instinctive, emotional drive, and when he talks about the Makerfield test, he has in his mind's eye, to use a Keir Starmer phrase, the very people for whom progress has not affected as much. And it is for them that Prime Minister Andy Burnham has uppermost in mind when driving through the changes that he will oversee. And it's for him now to outline those details and that plan. And I'm sure that will come this week, and I'll be very excited to hear it.
James Frith, thank you very much. As Keir Starmer has quit and Andy Burnham has just become Prime Minister, and his friends and supporters and people who are likely to be part of his administration have filled Downing Street in anticipation of his arrival. Now, much has been said, of course, of his success in helping transform Greater Manchester as mayor. What will that mean for the way he approaches taking over the country as a whole? Our North of England correspondent, Claire Fallon, is in Manchester city centre. Claire.
Well, you know, Krish, it's been only just over a month since Andy Burnham won that by-election in the Makerfield constituency. A lot has changed since then, clearly. It's happened really fast, I think, frankly, faster than Andy Burnham in an ideal world would have wanted things to happen. But up until that point, as Mayor of Greater Manchester, Andy Burnham was making decisions for people of around about 3 million. That's the population of Greater Manchester, so not an insignificant area. That's not far off the population of Wales. But all the same, now stepping up to being Prime Minister and making decisions affecting 70 million people in the UK. Despite that huge change in scale, I think there are some signs that we can take from his priorities while he was Mayor of Greater Manchester to give us a bit of a clue about what he may well do as Prime Minister, particularly being as we're all clutching for things here, with not that many details as of yet. Buses. Of course, I cannot not mention buses, because so much has been said about those buses being an example of what may well come in terms of things like utilities, water companies, greater public control. And the thing that I think gets lost when we're talking about buses is that actually it wasn't just about how they're run. It wasn't just about re-regulation. Up until Andy Burnham got some kind of reins on the buses, it was a complete free-for-all. I mean, I could get on a bus in Manchester and I wouldn't know how much I'd be paying. It was so much more than you would pay for a bus in London, for example, and that seemed like one of the big unfairnesses, as Andy Burnham put it, that he wanted to try and tackle by re-regulating the buses. That said, the story that Andy Burnham has been telling about how he's going to make Greater Manchester and Manchesterism translate across the UK is one about how he can get things done, as he did with the buses. But bear in mind also, when he became mayor here, he said that he would end rough sleeping in Greater Manchester. That promise morphed into an end and ending the need for rough sleeping, but that clearly has not happened. A great deal of work has been done, but he's not solved it.
Thanks, Claire. Well, let's speak now to Liam Thorpe, political editor of the Liverpool Echo, who co-wrote a book with Andy Burnham, fleshing out many of his political ideas, and Sophie Stars, who's research manager for the think tank and polling company More in Common UK. Liam, when Andy Burnham says he has a plan, is it what you or I would regard as a proper plan, or is it a big idea that he hopes all these people gathering outside number 10 will work out what it actually means?
Well, I hope it's a proper plan, Christian. He certainly has a vision, and you'll have read that in Head North. I'm not sure absolutely every element of that will transpire, because it's a lot easier to set out your vision for the country when you're not running the country. But I think it would be underestimating him to suggest that he hasn't got a plan of how to put those things into practice. I think he knows that speed and time is of the essence here. He is not going to get long. He, particularly by way of the fact that he's come in this way that some people would suggest he hasn't got that mandate. He needs to move immediately, quickly. So he needs to start announcing things today, basically around his idea for rewiring the country, radical regional devolution, pushing powers out of Westminster into the regions, as we know, public control around, maybe we'll see an announcement about Thames Water straight away. And he needs to set that direction of travel so that, as you say, people start to realize this isn't just a kind of big idea or a big vision. He has practical things that he can put in place today, tomorrow, this week, that show that he means business.
Yes, now you sat down and talked to him a lot about his actual ideas and put them in Head North. I suppose you'll now have to write Head South, which is about making those ideas a bit bigger. What does he mean by public control?
Well, that I think, again, when we talk about it as the Mayor of Greater Manchester, he believed in full fat public control. He believed in bringing our services back under at least an element of state control. And you've obviously seen with the buses in Manchester, as Claire said, that they are now publicly controlled. And that means, of course, that you can make decisions around fares, around routes, around timetables, and that there is public accountability. But obviously, doing that on a national scale could be immensely expensive. There are different arguments around what kind of expense it would mean around privatising water. Obviously, with the last government, you saw with the trains, they kind of fell into public control when they came to the end of their contract. We may see more of that. And I can't imagine that it's going to be full fat public control from the off, but it will be a direction of travel, and we will see more state intervention, more state control over some of the things to try and make the cost of living less onerous for people and to bring a level of stability that we just don't see with the private sector.
Well, Liam, we're actually seeing Andy Burnham leaving Buckingham Palace, where he has, with his wife, where he has become Prime Minister, and it's only a couple of minutes for him to make it back here to Downing Street. Sophie, let me bring you in. I mean, how much of a wind behind him does Andy Burnham have with the country more widely? Is he going to get a honeymoon period?
He's willing to give Andy Burnham a hearing in a way they kind of lost the patience to give Keir Starmer to do. People are quite optimistic. We see he's on about +3 in favourability, which doesn't sound like a lot, but Keir Starmer's on -42. So he's kind of off to a better start. But I think the key thing is, I think people only give Andy Burnham quite a short space of time. A majority say by about this time next year, they want to have seen tangible progress on things like the cost of living, energy bills, small boats, the NHS waiting time. So not a very long period of time. People are quite anxious now to see change. You know, they're hopeful, but they want him to get on with the job.
I mean, we're watching the cars and the police convoy coming from Buckingham Palace to here in Downing Street while we speak. And it's widely expected he's going to have a series of announcements over the next 10 years to try and signal the help he can offer on the cost of living. I mean, how much time has he got on that to show that he means business? And if those announcements are perceived as small, how much of a problem will it be?
Yeah, I mean, cost of living really is the ultimate priority. I mean, 62% of people say it's the biggest issue facing the country. It's actually something that unites those voters that have moved away from Labour to its left and to its right. So really key for Labour to rebuild faith in it as a party. And actually, when we ask people what type of action do you want to see on the economy, it is quite often that sort of targeted, more quicker, actionable measures on the cost of living. Most people only give Burnham about 6 months actually to make progress on that. And I think the really key thing is that's not just a measure of competence for a lot of voters of, you know, can you come in and get things done? But it's actually a value judgment. It's, do you understand the lives of people like me, the financial struggles and stresses I've been going through for the last 2 years? I think Starmer ultimately failed that challenge. So now it's up to Burnham to see if he can show voters that he gets it.
And Liam, I mean, let me bring you in as we expect to see Andy Burnham any second. How confident is he? I mean, he sounds very confident in public. I mean, is that a facade? You know, is he sort of racked by doubts behind the scenes, or is he really that confident now that he's been in government in one form or another for a long time?
Well, let's not forget this is his third go at the leadership, third time lucky, and so he's obviously felt for some time that he had the capabilities to lead the Labour Party and ideally in his position, in his mind, to be Prime Minister. I truly believe that the last 9 years in Greater Manchester has really cemented his position, his confidence in what he believes in. You know, there used to be criticisms levelled at Andy Burnham when he was a minister for being a bit wishy-washy, perhaps a bit of a weather vane. You know, people can argue about whether that's a fair criticism, but I think over the last decade in regional government, you know, ultimately a very successful period as Mayor of Greater Manchester has cemented his confidence in what he believes in and what he believes his diagnosis of the country is. And that's why, you know, sometimes people ask me, does he really believe in pushing power away from Westminster when he's about to take power in Westminster? Well, yes, he absolutely categorically believes that that's the biggest solution that he can come up with, is to push power into the regions, give people more say over what they believe in their local communities, and give those local leaders the power to drive the growth that the country needs from those local bases. So I think he's finessed and polished his big vision for the country. So I think he is confident. You know, he's a pretty normal guy. He's pretty down to earth. He's pretty ordinary, and he comes from an ordinary background. So of course he'll be anxious. Of course he'll be nervous. I don't think he's overly arrogant, but he believes this is his time.
Well, Liam Thorpe, thank you very much indeed for your thoughts, and Sophie, thank you as well. So well, can we call it a motorcade? The convoy is coming towards Downing Street, and we will expect to hear Andy Burnham's first words as Prime Minister in a moment. And Gary Gibbon is still with me here, waiting in Downing Street.
I think I can see the beginnings of the convoy just turning into Downing Street now. It's not a motorcade Trump style, but here it comes.
Past the protesters, they interestingly have kept the protesters away from the beginning of the gates to Downing Street and pushed them over the other side of the road. And they've also made sure that this time the speech won't be drowned out by any music or amplification, because they've banned it from that entrance to Downing Street. So the only thing drowning out Andy Burnham might be the helicopters overhead.
He's going to come out of the car now and walk up and wave at these supporters and the number 10 team.
So we've got a right mix of local friends, family, political supporters. Surprising number of children.
Quite a lot of people seem to have brought their children, including the head of the policy unit, I can see. I can see family on this side in front of number 11. I think that's more friends down that end of the street. And then quite a lot of the number 10 team that have come out to welcome him, quite telling this, are the same people who just waved Keir Starmer off. Because this is all happening a bit quicker than he might have expected or wanted. And he hasn't quite got the team fully lined up that he would like.
Yeah, how much of the team is sorted out?
Well, quite a lot of the people I'm looking at on my left are in Downing Street, but as I say, the same people who came out for wave off Keir Starmer a short while ago. We've got the senior positions worked out. There might be more names worked out than we know, and we may hear those quite soon. I've been told we should expect some surprises, by the way, which makes you wonder, does that mean a celebrity appointment, a cross-party reach-out appointment? We have no idea at the moment. He has been quite good at guarding quite a few of his secrets.
So this is really quite a moment for Andy Burnham, isn't it? I mean, his third attempt at becoming Labour leader sealed on Friday, and...
You say his third attempt. I'm not sure he didn't drag his coat round Labour Party conference a couple of times after those actual moments when he was a candidate. There's Josh Simons who's just walked past, the man who yielded him the seat of Makerfield, was a Labour MP until he stood down to let Andy Burnham come in. He's just said hello to him. He's now coming up to one of his best pals in politics, Steve Rotherham.
Holding a baby.
Holding a baby. I don't think it's his own. All politicians should hold babies.
Is he going to pick up the baby? No, he's not.
And then he's chatting to... That's an former Everton player, Peter Reid.
Well, he's taking his time and drinking in the moment.
I wonder if he'll come over the other side and greet any of his family. He may want to keep the family sort of off camera a bit. Different prime ministers have different takes on that. I notice they've held back a little bit, even though they're here to witness the scene. Two brothers who are headmasters.
Well, I think he is going to come and see the other side. He is going to come
over the other side. And now
let's hear what he has to say.
Thank you. I have just come from Buckingham Palace, where I have accepted His Majesty the King's invitation to form a government. In doing so, I am acutely conscious that I am the 6th person in the last 10 years to walk up this street. the 7th Prime Minister since 2016, making this a moment for reflection and new resolution. It requires my generation of politicians to raise our game and rise to the new challenge. Britain needs to show the world that we can regain our stability once again. And that is our challenge, to make politics work, to make it work better. I know people at home are fed up with politics. I hear you, and I want to be honest with you. We have not been good enough, and we need to be better. We will be. We will make this moment a circuit breaker for Britain, bringing forward the biggest changes in the last 40 years. A new political model and a new economic model. In the 1980s, Britain took some wrong turns. Political power was centralised, economic power privatised, large parts of the country deindustrialised, and they still haven't recovered. Many feel as though they're still in decline, and they don't have the ability to turn things around. And that's why we will change politics, to make it more collaborative, more about problem solving than point scoring. And we will take power out of here and carry it into every postcode in the land so that they can do more. And in doing more, build a new economy where we put life's essentials back under stronger public control to make them affordable to you again. Reindustrialising Britain, using public procurement to back British industry. Later this year, I will bring forward a new plan for Britain, a 10-year plan, laying out a path from where we are now to where I believe we all want Britain to be, wherever we're coming from, whatever party we support. But I can do something to give people some breathing space now, some help with the cost of living. And I will set out some of those measures starting tomorrow, including how we pay for them. We will help more young people into work by changing the education system and giving them more support, more mental health support. And we will build more council homes. That is the fair and sustainable way to bring the welfare bill down, to meet our fiscal rules and to honour our commitments on defence to our international partners. We will help people to live well, building a more preventative state, investing in people's success rather than paying for failure. And that work starts now. I will soon go through that door behind me and issue my first instruction to end rough sleeping in our country. It's about putting the right values and the right standards at the heart of government. I will put the care of people at the heart of everything I do. I will give this my all, and I ask you all to pull with me. Let's build a new national sense of unity, of common purpose and positivity. Let us make this the moment when Britain starts to believe again, the moment we bring back hope. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you very much, everybody.
So a quick embrace of his wife Frankie, and then over to the other side of all his friends, supporters, family who have come here to Downing Street to welcome Andy Burnham. And that was quite an interesting speech. I mean, stylistically, he wasn't in front of the lectern. He was speaking openly, directly to people, and he talked about wanting a new national sense of unity, of common purpose. He was frank about the failures of his generation of politicians and the need to start again. A big hug there for Andy Burnham's mum. Yeah, and a very, very proud mum. You can see how understandably emotional she is. And really, I mean, again, in terms of the frankness of what he talked about, in terms of failure gone by in the past, Gary, it was a hands-up moment. We need to do better.
Yes, we have heard it from him before, but it was underlined here. We've got to raise our game. I don't think it's very football sort of language there. I don't think I'd heard him use quite that expression before. Regain our stability. There's a kind of acknowledgement there that Britain has turned into the eyes of the world just a little bit, looking like Italy used to look in the 1970s or 80s.
He does have this smile of a cat that got the cream.
When he walks in the door, he may discover the cream's a little off.
So there's the image. And he said his first instruction as he goes through that door now is to end rough sleeping.
Very interesting echo there of something he announced when he became Mayor of Greater Manchester, only to discover that he didn't, in that job, exactly have all the powers he needed to do it.
Although they have had success, I think.
They have had some success, but he obviously thinks he's got the levers in this job. And so he can confidently announce it again, even though he was slightly wrong-footed when he announced it going into the Manchester job. It's obviously a very high priority, and as we know, he went out this morning to a homeless project and handed out the food.
Well, let's bring in Anushka Astana, our US editor, who is with us as well, because as he goes in there and takes over, his number one international relationship is going to be with Donald Trump. And that's quite a difficult relationship to try and predict, isn't it?
Very difficult to predict. You know, I was watching his speech when we first knew he was going to be Prime Minister after getting to become Makerfield MP, and he had this sentence in it that he wanted to turn away from the path that takes us to a divided dark politics of the kind we see in the United States. So really critical of the US. I was listening out. None of that here. And as he walks through those doors, Krish, what's going to happen to him is what happens to every Prime Minister, and we've seen it quite a few times now around. They get sat down, they go through the details, all those intelligence links between us and the US, all those economic links, how one decision by an erratic Donald Trump can really affect our economy, and they start to change their tone. And I already think we're starting to hear him change his tone. There was none of the negative. There was a promise on defence commitment, and we've been hearing about oil and gas over the weekend, how he wants to keep drilling particular contracts that perhaps Keir Starmer would have greenlit anyway, but Donald Trump talking about people in Aberdeen dancing in the streets. Already we're seeing Andy Burnham perhaps shying away from attacking Donald Trump, but let's see. He signalled in Makerfield he might be different.
I mean, one of his first decisions, if you like, is going to be whether to let Donald Trump continue to use British bases to step up attacks on Iran. Trump is now talking more about attacking Iranian infrastructure again, taking the war back to a place it was in earlier this year before the Memorandum of Understanding, before it became confined effectively to military targets around the Strait of Hormuz. Could Andy Burnham's first action really be to say no to Donald Trump?
Well, I think we've seen a real split in rhetoric and reality in terms of Britain and how we've been supporting America when it comes to Iran. Yes, we said no initially for a moment, and Donald Trump has rhetorically punished us for it, but in reality we've given America a lot of what they want. I think Andy Burnham comes in at a different time to Keir Starmer when it was, they bent over backwards to please Donald Trump. Now it's not popular to do that. So he'll want the rhetoric to continue to look like he's pushing back on Donald Trump, but behind the scenes I imagine they'll be finding ways that they can help.
Gary, how do you see this relationship playing out between Andy Burnham and Donald Trump?
With enormous difficulty. I mean, nobody finds the relationship with, I doubt even his wife finds the relationship with Donald Trump. I think I'd be pretty confident of saying she doesn't find it straightforward. He's the most difficult phenomenon ever to have occupied the main political stage, and it's going to be very daunting for him. He's already signalled, hasn't he, Andy Burnham, over Gaza, that he's going to be in a slightly different bit of the pitch than Keir Starmer was on quite a few issues. He's ready to move there, and yet he says, in the end, our continuing relationship with America is the thing that will abide and which he is focused on. So some similarities. Tonally, I think some differences we'll see.
I mean, well, what he's also suggested is that he won't spend quite as much time on foreign affairs as Keir Starmer did.
I think we call that an aspiration.
Yeah, well, exactly.
You don't always
get
to choose. He's going to be getting briefings. He's going to be told by the head of the military he's got to write some pretty brutal letters that will go into envelopes. He gets a little while to do it. He doesn't have to write it the moment he gets in there, which will decide what to do if it looks like the whole of Britain has been obliterated in a nuclear war. He's going to have all sorts of things coming at him. And yeah, it's not a choice you get to make. You don't really get to delegate foreign affairs. All the summits you ever go to, there's heads of government there. You can't just send a deputy.
And they always quite enjoy them, as they will when he goes to the UN in September.
They all end up preferring that.
Well, let me bring in another of our colleagues. I mean, what will an Andy Burnham premiership mean for the economy? Our economics reporter, Neil MacDonald, joins us from around the corner. Neil.
I mean, obviously the cost of living crisis is the issue on everyone's minds. That's why the new Prime Minister is talking about it. We are at a critical juncture on that because the renewal of fighting in Iran means that petrol prices and diesel prices here in the UK have been going back up in the last few days. And just today, the price of natural gas for the UK on international markets has hit the highest level that it's been for 4 months. I mean, so most economists think that inflation is going to be going up for the second half of this year. So right now, the cost of living crisis is going to get worse, not better, certainly in the short term. And that increase in gas prices is significant because if it carries on, it means that even as the new government is trying to help people, the problem may be getting worse. So they effectively are starting to shoot at a moving target.
So what can Andy Burnham do about the cost of living?
Well, I mean, we assume that there will be some sort of way of reducing bills for people. I mean, one idea that is being floated today is something slightly more radical, looking at the point at which people start to pay their income tax. So most of us get a personal allowance of about £12,500 before we pay any income tax. The issue is that that sum has been frozen for some years and is due to remain frozen. He's mentioned that voters were talking about that to him. If you start to increase it again, you effectively give people a tax break. The problem is, if you raise it by just £100, for example, that loses the Treasury about £1 billion in revenue. And of course, raising it by £100 is simply not going to make much difference to most people. So if you want to have an impact that people notice, well, then you're starting to talk about committing billions of pounds. And under the fiscal rules that he is committing himself to, and which the financial markets certainly seems to assume he is committing himself to, he really doesn't have that amount of money to spend on one thing.
Thanks, Neil. Well, Gary and Anushka are still with me. Gary, now we can start naming his team. I had a whisper about sackings at 2, appointments at 4.
I think he intends to get on with things as fast as possible. Some of the sackings might have already happened behind the scenes informally. It's turning into a bit of a street party here, isn't it? People milling around. It's not the order and structure that Keir Starmer would have liked, I don't think. he's going to try and get that stuff out the door as fast as possible, not least because the markets are hanging there waiting to hear who the Chancellor is. That he might have killed off the rumours that it was going to be Ed Miliband. They just want to know, and uncertainty is not a good idea.
And of course, it was the Americans who wanted to kill off the idea of Ed Miliband as Chancellor as well, wasn't it, Anushka?
Well, I think the Americans would like to see Andy Burnham not too to the left. I mean, Donald Trump has already made comments about hearing that he's a bit of a lefty. And so that's not exactly what they want to see, although the rumours I've been hearing was that Ed Miliband could be Foreign Secretary. Well, he's the guy who then has to deal with America. So it's not completely obvious which way that would go. And then I think they have a kind of energy issue that's bubbling up, and perhaps they want to move Ed Miliband away from energy. They want to signal that they will do some drilling in the North Sea. I think that's as much about trying to stop the political debate here as much as it is what's going on with America, but clearly that makes quite a big difference to how Donald Trump is feeling. I've never seen anyone so obsessed with one issue as Donald Trump is obsessed with North Sea drilling.
In a few seconds, Gary, I mean, by 7 o'clock when we're coming back on air, should we know the cabinet?
We should know the big names by then, yes.